I am thrilled to be able to bring the pursuit of happiness to the table. And I welcome all of you, and I'm excited to hear how you all are finding your joy.
Well, was there a moment, and was it just recently? I think that I could say that consistently nature brings me joy, kind of takes my breath away. And that could be in the form of walking around my neighborhood and seeing a beautiful sunset sky, seeing the different pinks and oranges in the distance, or seeing the moon, the super moon out, kind of just takes my breath away. Or it could even be working in the garden, and right after the rains, the weeds are so easy to pull. That brings me joy. So yeah. I think consistently nature and Mother Earth bring me joy.
I was working in the garden, and I have some volunteer cucumber plants that I did not plant that are about that big, and the rabbits have not yet eaten them, and I found them first. So I've claimed them, I've covered them, and I have more babies now. So that made me happy.
We have two, actually there are two beautiful crabapple trees blooming in our yard the past week, and they didn't bloom last year. And so I thought we thought maybe they were dead or something, whatever. And I mean, really beautiful, like big pink flowers. But that was thing too. So yesterday I went over to our help out my daughter. So I was playing Mario Kart on the Wii with our two grandsons, and I was kicking their butt. And so they just like jumped on me, and we're trying to move the little wheel, so I would like crash into off the cliff and stuff like that. It was just fun. So it's just like just laughing, giggling sort of with them it was just so, I don't know if pure is the word, but you know what I mean, simple and just nice.
What made me happy today is the grandchildren are staying the night again with us, and then I'll have them all day tomorrow doing homeschool and outdoor activities if it's warm enough. And no matter what gets me down, their little smiles and giggles are just amazing.
And the other thing about happiness, I think it involves gratitude and a feeling that, gosh, I'm so fortunate to have what I have, that my moments of sadness and my moments of challenge and difficulty they can be overcome.
Going to mention, I think gratitude is a great way to put that into the definition. It's very difficult to be happy without gratitude. One of the people, I'm fairly involved in social media, especially when you're retired. It keeps you away, I guess, from the negative parts of the regular media sometimes. But one of the things that I saw recently that really brought it home to me, and again, this relates a lot to social media, and that is to be happy. I think one of the elements in your personality or in who you are is you have to have compassion for others to be happy.
Yeah. On that top, I think having hope is another, input for happiness or maybe joy. I do think, Jones, that happiness might be more of like a state, while joy might be more of an emotion that you experience as a result of something. Kind of back on that.
Yeah.
But I do think having hope might also be a contributor to being happy, because if you run out of hope, wow.
You're hopeless.
I think you're just going downhill fast.
Yeah.
How does one open themselves? If it's not a pursuit, does one need to be open to it in one way or another? And how does one do that? How do you open yourself to the potential of having joy find you and kind of become a part of who you are in your soul?
Well, some people just live their lives open. Some people are just created as open people, and if they don't let external forces and other people shut them down, they live their lives as being open. And that's how you realize things, is you put yourself in a position to be able to realize.
I think I'm thinking about, like, when you're talking about, Chris, when you were talking about it's hard to be joyful when I'm worried about like filling the tank with gas and like getting food on the table. And it reminded me of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You've got to survive first. And I find it really difficult to be joyful or happy when I'm in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like when I'm surviving, but when that's in the mode that I'm in, regardless of my reality. Like I just can't appreciate like the good. I'm not present to it, right? Because I'm looking for like, how do I like milk this situation? Like, how do I survive the situation? Like, how do I turn this to my benefit? Because I'm caught in a mode that sort of, for me, doesn't allow for joy. And the biggest missing for me when I'm in survival mode is that I'm not present. Like I can't appreciate what's happening. And my faculties aren't there for that. And so presence feels really important.
I think happiness is a state of being. I think joy is an emotion. I think joy most often pops up unexpected, which is why I wouldn't pursue joy. I think if you're pursuing joy, you're missing some other joys along the way if you're focused on, finding your joy.
For me, when I was speaking of agenda, it's that if I say happiness is this on my terms, I am so much less likely to get it than if, as you guys said, just open. So if I allow myself to be surprised by what is delivered to me instead of making it be on my terms, there's a lot more options for happiness. If it's just allowed, and that's it, without my agenda superseding it.
Yeah.
I think as I've gotten older, one of the things I've gotten better at is learning to recognize those fun moments, those moments that are filled with contentness or whatever, when they come. Because they come, every now and then, sometimes more than once a day. I mean, not everything has to be perfect. Your job isn't going to be great every day. But learning to recognize those few moments and learning to recognize, I think, especially as we get older, it becomes easier.
And so I think what I'm torn right now is this tension between is joy and happiness and emotion. And then it feels like a fickle thing that does kind of surprise you or just happen to you. And it is not always in touch with what's happening, but rather your interpretation of what's happening. Or is joy a choice? In the traditions that I grew up in, joy was cast as a thing you could choose versus a thing you feel. And maybe that's sort of the distinction of happiness is something that you feel, but joy is a choice.
And I really began to see that it does not happen to you. You have to choose it in an active sense. And finding that and practicing it and finding that it works for me. It's seeing all those little things that we walk right by and embracing them instead of stepping on them.
So when you look at our present, our shared collective of where we are in the middle of this pandemic called COVID-19 and our isolationism, our self quarantining, our being apart from loved ones, that are often, for some of you, you mentioned at the beginning, that was a big part of your joy, was that connection to those others. So how are we going about finding our joy in the present day, this space that we are all living, but uniquely so? And are you finding it differently than you used to? Do you find joy in different spaces? So how do you find your joy? And is it different than you used to find joy or happiness or moments of light that shine on your day?
Thinking about my situation, in some ways, I do think that this situation, COVID, quarantine, all that, it's made it easier to push out some of those negative people that before you had no choice but to see the rude person on the subway or the person in the office you didn't get along with. On the other hand, you're also kind of literally stuck with some people sometimes. And so you have to make the best of those situations. And so I think it's definitely got some duality there, but I would say, I think this situation, it's what you make of it, but I feel like this situation for me, gosh, I think I'm being more social now than ever doing.
I've loved this time. I feel a little guilty saying that. we're a family. I say yes to too many things. I think like life is just so exciting, and I love all the opportunities my kids have. So I say yes to everything, and I'm the one that wears my family into the ground with all my enthusiasm. And they're always like, Mom, can we just stop? Like even at Disney World, they're like, can we just go back to the hotel? And I'm like, no, there's more to see. And I'm like that about all of life. I don't do well sitting still. So I was nervous about this, and I have loved it. We have not been able to do all those things that Mom runs us around the hamster wheel on. So I have been forced to sit with my family, and it's been fabulous. I appreciate that my kids miss their social life, and that's significant, but it will end, in my opinion. They've had to wrestle with boredom, which I think is a great activity to have to solve on their own because I'm.
But what we're doing right now is we're adapting to it. We're reaching out, we're having a conversation. Some people we know and some people that are strangers. But if you can't adapt, I think you're going to end up with a lot of unhappiness.
So how can or do we foster joy for others?
By doing for others.
By doing for others, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, I mean, for me, that always works. You know, if I see somebody with a need, if there's something I can do in my limited circumstances, I try to do it. And it's more selfish than anything else sometimes because it's
I agree.
feel good.
My friend Carol taught me, she came up to me one time and just said, I see you. And it was validation. It was like, you want to be heard, you want to be known. You want to exist to somebody sometimes.
Yeah.
And you don't even want it solved, but that's the amount of that you have to put yourself aside to do that is tremendous. And
So what I'm learning is that to help other people find joy is to let them know that somebody's actually willing to be in their presence at whatever they have going on. And oftentimes we're going to meet them where they are in a dark period of time, and we're going to be that first light for them.